Nyla Cole, an 11-year-old girl with tears already forming in her dark brown eyes, always believed her father would protect her from anything. Today, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of his life, she makes a decision that will shatter everything he thought he knew. As she watches her daddy standing at the altar in his tailored black suit, about to marry a woman who has been hiding a terrifying secret, Nyla steps forward and speaks a single word that stops the entire ceremony cold. Her bold move destroys the wedding before it begins, but what happens next leaves everyone in the church frozen in disbelief. Why would two little girls risk everything to stop their father's happiness? What truth have they been carrying alone? And why does their father immediately reach for his phone? Stay tuned to find out. And before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today. If this story moves you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. The word came out like shattered glass. No. One syllable. That was all it took. The organ stopped mid-note. 80 heads turned at once. The bride froze halfway down the aisle, her white gown pooling around her bare feet on the burgundy carpet. Nyla stood between the altar and the front pew, her small body trembling in her white flower girl dress. Her twin sister Zuri gripped her hand so tight their knuckles had gone pale. Both girls had tears streaming down their faces, catching the rainbow light from the stained glass windows. Their father Darius stood at the altar. His tailored black suit fit perfectly across his broad shoulders. His fresh haircut and trimmed beard made him look younger than his 38 years. But his hands were shaking now. His dark eyes locked onto his daughter with confusion spreading across his face. The church was one of those old Georgia buildings with polished oak pews and the smell of lilies mixing with furniture polish. Summer heat pressed against the windows despite the air conditioning working overtime. Guests fanned themselves with programs, frozen in that awkward space between shock and embarrassment. Monique Hayes stood in the aisle, bouquet trembling in her manicured fingers. Her light skin seemed to pale as she processed what just happened. She was beautiful, everyone always said so. Graceful. Poised. The kind of woman who volunteered at charities and spoke gently to strangers. But Nyla had flinched when Monique entered the church. Darius noticed. That flinch shot through him like electricity. He had been so focused on how perfect today was supposed to be. 5 years since Janelle died. 5 years of raising twin girls alone. 5 years of cold beds and parent-teacher conferences where he was always the only father without a wife beside him. Today was supposed to fix all of that. "Baby girl," Darius said, forcing his voice to stay calm. His tongue felt thick. "What are you doing?" Nyla's chin lifted. Tears kept falling but her voice came out stronger. "She is lying, Daddy." Gasps rippled through the pews like dominoes falling. Monique laughed. The sound was light, practiced, designed to dissolve tension. "Sweetheart, you are just nervous. Big days can feel scary. She is not nice." Nyla's voice got louder. "She is not who she says she is." An elderly woman in the front row clutched her pearls. Someone in the back whispered, "Lord have mercy." Darius felt his stomach drop through the floor. Zuri stepped forward, positioning herself slightly in front of her sister. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "She told us not to tell." The words hit the silence like a bomb. "She said Daddy would never believe us over her." Monique's smile tightened at the edges. Her eyes flicked to Darius with something that looked like pleading. Or maybe calculation. He could not tell anymore. "Ethan, they are confused," she said smoothly. "Children make up stories when they feel threatened. You know how hard this adjustment has been for them." But Darius was not looking at Monique anymore. He was looking at his daughters. At the way they held each other. At the terror in their eyes that he had somehow missed for months. His mother rose from the front pew, her church hat slightly crooked. "Darius, do something," she hissed. His sister Keisha covered her mouth with both hands. The pastor stood frozen with his Bible open to nothing. Darius took one step toward his daughters. Then another. He knelt down on the altar steps, his expensive suit pressing against the dusty wood. His large hands wrapped around both their small ones. "Look at me," he said quietly. Both girls looked. What he saw in their eyes made his blood turn cold. They were afraid. Not nervous. Not acting out. Afraid. The kind of fear children only have when they know something terrible that adults refuse to see. Behind him, Monique shifted her weight. Her bare feet made no sound on the carpet. "Darius, let us just step outside and handle this privately," she said. Her voice was still sweet but something underneath it had changed. "There is no need to embarrass everyone." Nyla's grip on her father's hand became crushing. "Daddy," she whispered. "Please." That one word. Please. It held 18 months of secrets. 18 months of silence. 18 months of waiting for someone, anyone, to believe them. Darius stood slowly. His jaw was tight. His eyes had gone hard in a way his daughters had never seen before. Nobody is going anywhere, he said. His voice echoed off the church walls. My daughters are going to tell me everything. Right here. Right now. Monique's perfect composure cracked for just a second. Her mask slipped. And in that moment, Darius saw something he had never noticed in 18 months of dinners and movie nights and Sunday mornings. He saw fear. Not fear of being wrong. Fear of being caught. What exactly had this woman been hiding? And how far would she go to keep her secrets buried? The silence after Darius spoke was so heavy it felt like the whole church might collapse under the weight of it. Nyla swallowed hard. Her throat was dry and scratchy from crying. She looked at her father kneeling before her and saw something she had been praying for since the nightmares started. He was listening. Really listening. When you work late, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. The church acoustics carried every word to the back row anyway. Miss Monique changes. A woman near the middle pew leaned forward. Her face goes different, Nyla continued. Hard. Like stone. Monique shifted her weight again. This is ridiculous, she said with a small laugh. Darius, we should really take this conversation somewhere private. Keep talking, baby, Darius said without turning around. His eyes never left his daughter's face. Zuri found her voice next. She makes us stand in the bathroom. The door locked. Sometimes for hours. More gasps. Someone muttered something about calling somebody. We have to be quiet the whole time, Nyla added. No crying allowed. She says crying is disrespectful. Darius's jaw tightened so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. Monique stepped forward, her bare feet silent on the carpet. Children exaggerate. Everyone knows that. I have never laid a hand on these girls. I have been nothing but loving toward them. She threw away Mommy's picture, Zuri said. Her voice cracked on the word Mommy. The one from our room. She said it was time to move on. A collective inhale swept through the guests. She threw away what? Keisha's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Darius held up one hand to stop his sister. His focus remained locked on his daughters. What else? He asked quietly. Nyla looked at Zuri. Some silent communication passed between them. The kind that only twins understand. Zuri nodded slightly. She said if we told anyone, Daddy would not believe us, Nyla said. She said little girls who lie get sent away to homes. She said she would make sure we never saw you again. The front row woman was crying now. Her husband had his arm around her shoulders, his own face twisted with anger. Monique's laugh came out higher this time. Less controlled. This is absurd. Darius, you know me. You know I would never say things like that. They are clearly jealous. They do not want to share you with anyone. But Darius was not listening to her anymore. Memories were flooding back now. Things he had dismissed. Things he had explained away. The night Zuri started wetting the bed again after 18 months of staying dry. The way Nyla would press herself against the wall whenever Monique walked past. Both girls asking to sleep in his room every single night. Their grades dropping. The laughter disappearing from the house. He thought it was adjustment. He thought they needed time. He thought losing their mother and gaining a new almost stepmother was just hard for them. He never once thought to ask why. Did she ever hurt you physically? Darius asked. His voice had gone dangerously calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. Nyla hesitated. Zuri's hand found her sister's again. Tell him, Zuri whispered. Tell him everything. Nyla's hand moved unconsciously to her upper arm. She rubbed a spot near her elbow. A habit Darius had never noticed before. She hurt Zuri, Nyla finally said. Not just the bathroom stuff. What do you mean? Darius's voice was barely above a growl now. Monique took another step back. Whatever she is about to say is a lie. I want that on record. These children have been trying to sabotage our relationship from day one. Nobody was looking at her anymore. Every eye in the church was fixed on the twins. Zuri's bottom lip trembled. She burned me. The words dropped like a bomb. A man in the third row stood up abruptly. His wife pulled at his arm but he shook her off. Burned you how? Darius asked. His hands were shaking again but not from nerves. From something much darker. Zuri did not answer. She just looked at her arm. At the long sleeve of her flower girl dress that she had insisted on wearing even though it was 90 degrees outside. Darius had thought she was just being modest. Now he understood. Zuri, he said gently. Can you show me? Monique's voice cut through. Darius, stop this immediately. You are humiliating yourself. You are humiliating me. Whatever mark she has was an accident. Children hurt themselves all the time. But something in her voice had changed. The sweetness was gone. Something desperate had replaced it. Zuri's fingers trembled as they moved toward her sleeve. Nyla put an arm around her sister's shoulders. The sisters stood together, united, braver than any adults in the room. Zuri began to roll up her sleeve. And Monique Hayes, for the first time since Darius had known her, looked truly afraid. What that sleeve revealed would change everything. But first, someone was about to make a terrible mistake. Zuri's sleeve stopped halfway up her forearm. "Wait!" The voice came from the side of the altar. Pastor Williams stepped forward, his hands raised in that calming gesture preachers use when things go sideways. "Now, let us all just take a breath here," he said. His tone was measured. Reasonable. The voice of 60 years of mediating church drama. Darius did not move. His eyes stayed fixed on his daughter's arm. "Brother Darius," the pastor continued, "perhaps we should handle this matter privately. After the ceremony. There is no need to air family business before the entire congregation." A few people in the back nodded. The comfortable whispers of agreement started spreading. Monique seized the opening like a drowning woman grabbing a life preserver. "Thank you, Pastor," she said. Her composure was rebuilding itself brick by brick. "This is clearly a very emotional day for everyone. The girls are overwhelmed. I think we should take them home and talk this through as a family." She turned to Darius with tears glistening in her eyes. Perfect tears. The kind that smudged just enough mascara to look genuine without ruining her makeup completely. "Darling, you know how much I love these girls," she said softly. "I have tried so hard to be a mother to them. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I made mistakes. But can we please just discuss this in private?" Her hand reached for his arm. Her touch was gentle. Familiar. For one terrible moment, Darius almost listened. The pastor's words made sense. This was embarrassing. Everyone was watching. His mother looked mortified. His co-workers from the accounting firm were witnessing his personal life explode in real time. Maybe the girls were exaggerating. Kids did that sometimes. Especially kids who had lost their mother. Especially kids who did not want to share their father with a new woman. Maybe he should just postpone the wedding and figure this out later. His shoulders started to relax. His jaw unclenched slightly. And then he heard it. A small sound. So quiet he almost missed it. Nyla made a noise in her throat. Not a word. Just a sound. The sound of hope dying. The sound of a child who had finally worked up the courage to speak and was watching the adults choose the comfortable lie over the painful truth. Darius turned to look at his daughter. What he saw in her face nearly broke him. She was not surprised. She was not angry. She was resigned. Like she had expected this exact outcome. Like she had rehearsed for this moment of disappointment. Like she had already accepted that no one would believe her. That was when Darius realized something that made his blood freeze. This was not the first time his daughters had tried to tell someone. They had been here before. Maybe with his mother. Maybe with a teacher. Maybe with someone else. They had tried to sound the alarm and been told they were overreacting. They had reached out for help and been handed explanations instead. And now they were watching it happen again. Watching their own father choose peace over protection. Watching him slide back toward the woman who had been hurting them for 18 months. Darius looked at Monique's hand on his arm. Her perfectly manicured nails. Her expensive engagement ring that he had saved for 6 months to buy. Then he looked at his daughters. 2 little girls in white dresses. Holding onto each other because no adult had held onto them. Crying because no one had believed their tears before. Something shifted inside Darius Cole. Something fundamental. Something permanent. "Get your hand off me." His voice came out low. Controlled. Dangerous. Monique blinked. "What?" "I said get your hand off me." She pulled back like he had slapped her. "Darius, please, let us just be rational about this." "I am being rational." He turned to face the pastor. "With all due respect, Pastor Williams, my daughters are not finished speaking." The pastor's face reddened. "Brother Darius, surely we can find a more appropriate venue for this conversation." "There is no more appropriate venue than right here." Darius's voice rose. Not shouting. Just firm. Unshakable. These girls found the courage to speak in front of everyone. They deserved to be heard in front of everyone. He knelt back down before his daughters. His large hands cupped their small faces. Thumbs wiped away tears. "I am listening," he said. "I believe you. Whatever you need to show me, whatever you need to say, I am right here." Nyla's eyes widened. Something flickered across her face. Something that had been missing for 18 months. "Hope. Daddy," she whispered. "You mean it?" "I mean it, baby girl. Nothing and nobody is more important than you two. Not this wedding. Not what people think. Not any woman on this earth." His voice cracked. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have listened harder. But I am listening now." Zuri looked at her sister. Nyla nodded slowly. Then Zuri's fingers returned to her sleeve. This time, no one interrupted. The fabric rolled up inch by inch. Past her wrist. Past the delicate bones of her forearm. past the smooth brown skin that should have been unmarked and perfect. And there it was. A scar. Circular. Pink and puckered against her skin. The exact size and shape of a curling iron barrel. Not accidental. Deliberated. The kind of mark that comes from being held still while something hot is pressed against you for seconds that feel like hours. Gasps turned to shouts. Someone screamed. A woman in the front row covered her mouth and sobbed. But Darius did not hear any of it. He was staring at the mark on his daughter's arm. The mark that had been hiding under long sleeves for God knows how long. The mark that told him everything he needed to know about the woman he had almost married. When he turned to face Monique Hayes, there was no confusion left in his eyes. Only cold, absolute certainty. And a rage that could burn down cities. The mark on Zuri's arm seemed to glow under the church lights. "That is not what you think," Monique said quickly. Her voice had climbed an octave. "She did that to herself. Children hurt themselves all the time. You know how clumsy she is." Nobody spoke. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. "How do you know it was a curling iron?" Darius's voice cut through the chaos. Quiet. Deadly. Precise. Monique blinked. "What?" Zuri never said what burned her. He took a step toward her. Then another. "She just said you burned her arm. She did not mention what tool you used." The color drained from Monique's face. "But you just said she did it to herself with the curling iron." Darius's hands curled into fists at his sides. "How would you know what caused that mark unless you were there? Unless you were holding it?" The congregation went completely silent. The realization rippled through the pews like wind through wheat. She had just confessed without meaning to. Monique's mouth opened and closed. "I just assumed, that is all. The shape looked like, anyone could see that." Anyone who had been there, Darius finished for her. Nyla stepped forward. She was still trembling but her voice came out steady now. Stronger. "She did it when Daddy was at the conference in Atlanta. She said if we told, she would do it to me too." More gasps. More muttering. Someone in the back was already on their phone. Monique spun to face the guests. Her perfect composure had shattered completely now. Her hair was coming loose from its elegant updo. Her mascara was running for real this time. "You are all going to believe children over me?" Her voice was shrill. "I gave up everything for this family. I moved to this town. I quit my job. I have done nothing but try to love those ungrateful little brats and this is the thanks I get." The word hung in the air. Brats. Several women stood up from their seats. Their faces were hard with the particular fury of mothers and grandmothers who had just heard a woman insult injured children. Darius's mother stepped into the aisle. Her church hat was crooked and her eyes were blazing. "What did you just call my grandbabies?" Monique backed up another step. Her bare feet tangled in her wedding gown train. She stumbled slightly. "I did not mean it like that," she stammered. "I am upset. Everyone is attacking me. Those girls have been lying about me since day one." "They were not lying about the mark on Zuri's arm," Darius said. "That is real. I can see it right now." "It was an accident," Monique insisted. "I was doing her hair and she moved suddenly. I never meant to hurt her." "Then why did you threaten her not to tell?" Keisha had pushed through to stand beside her brother. "Why did you tell them Darius would not believe them? Innocent people do not make threats like that." Monique's eyes darted around the church. Looking for an ally. Looking for an exit. Looking for anyone who might still believe her story. She found no one. 80 pairs of eyes stared back at her with varying degrees of horror, disgust, and cold judgment. This was not going according to plan. For 18 months, she had played her role perfectly. The loving girlfriend. The patient almost stepmother. The woman who brought casseroles to neighbors and volunteered at the community food bank. She had built a reputation so spotless that no one would ever believe two little girls over her. But she had underestimated one thing. The unbreakable bond between a father and his children. Darius pulled his phone from his jacket pocket. "What are you doing?" Monique asked. Her voice had gone high and thin. "Calling the police." "You cannot be serious." She laughed but it came out wrong. Hysterical. "Over an accident? Over some bruises?" "Children get hurt. It happens." "Some bruises?" Nyla spoke up. Her fear was transforming into something else now. Something fiercer. "You grabbed my arm so hard you left finger marks. You made us stand in the dark bathroom until we wet ourselves because we were too scared to ask to come out. You told us our mommy was glad she died so she did not have to be our mother anymore." The last sentence hit the congregation like a physical blow. Darius's mother made a sound like someone had punched her in the stomach. Keisha covered her mouth with both hands. The pastor sat down heavily in the nearest pew, his face gray. "You said what about their mother?" Darius's voice had dropped to a whisper. The most dangerous volume. You told my daughters that Janelle was glad she died? Monique's mask was completely gone now. What remained underneath was ugly. Desperate. Cornered. They were always talking about her, she spat. Mommy this, mommy that. I was trying to help them move on. I was trying to help you move on. But those girls sabotaged everything from the very beginning. She pointed a shaking finger at the twins. They never wanted me here. They never gave me a chance. Everything I did was wrong. Everything I said was twisted. I am the victim here. I am the one who sacrificed everything. Zuri pressed closer to her sister. Nyla wrapped an arm around her. They had heard this voice before. This was the real Monique. The one who came out when Daddy was not home. The one who locked bathroom doors and left marks and whispered threats in the dark. But for the first time, everyone else was hearing it too. Darius looked at the woman he had planned to marry. He looked at her wild eyes and twisted mouth and clenched fists. He saw 18 months of manipulation and lies and cruelty that he had been too blind and too lonely to notice. His thumb moved across his phone screen. 911. He pressed call. Monique screamed. Not words. Just raw sound. The sound of a woman watching everything she had schemed for crumble to dust. She turned and ran. But she did not get far. What happened next would determine whether Darius's daughters would ever feel safe again. And whether Monique Hayes would finally face justice for what she had done. Monique made it 3 steps down the aisle before Darius's brother blocked her path. Malcolm Cole stood 6'4" and weighed 240 pounds. He had played linebacker in college and still looked like he could take down a running back without breaking a sweat. You are not going anywhere, he said quietly. Monique spun around. The side door. She could make it if she ran fast enough. But 2 women from the choir had already positioned themselves there. Their arms were crossed. Their faces were stone. The back exit. The pastor's private entrance behind the altar. Another man stood there. One of Darius's cousins. He shook his head slowly. Monique was trapped. You cannot do this, she screamed. You cannot keep me here. This is kidnapping. I will sue every single one of you. The police are on their way, Darius said into his phone. He was speaking to the dispatcher now. His voice was steady even though his hands were shaking. The suspect is still on scene. We have multiple witnesses to child abuse. Yes, there is physical evidence. A burn mark on my daughter's arm. Monique lunged toward him. Give me that phone. Malcolm stepped between them. Try it, he said. Please. She stopped. Her chest was heaving. Her perfect wedding gown was bunched around her knees from running. One of her earrings had fallen out somewhere. This is insane, she said. I am the victim here. Those girls are manipulative liars. They have been plotting against me since day one. Strange how manipulative liars end up with burned scars, Keisha said. Her voice dripped acid. Monique turned to the congregation. She was trying a different approach now. The tears were back. The wounded expression. Please, she begged. You all know me. I have worked with your children at the community center. I brought food to Mrs. Patterson when she had her hip surgery. I am not a monster. Mrs. Patterson stood up slowly from her pew. She was 73 years old and walked with a cane. You brought me casseroles, she said. But you burned that baby's arm. One does not cancel out the other. Monique's face twisted. She is lying. I saw the mark myself, Mrs. Patterson continued. We all did. That was not an accident. Accidents do not look like that. Sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. Monique heard them and something changed in her posture. The pleading stopped. The tears dried up. What remained was cold and hard and ugly. You are all going to regret this, she said. Her voice was flat now. Emotionless. Every single one of you. I will get a lawyer. I will sue for defamation. I will make sure everyone knows what really happened here today. What really happened, Darius said, pocketing his phone, is that my daughters finally found the courage to tell the truth. And you showed everyone exactly who you are. The church doors burst open. 2 police officers stepped inside, hands resting on their belts. Their eyes swept the scene. Barefoot bride. Groom with phone in hand. 2 crying children in flower girl dresses. 80 witnesses frozen in their pews. We received a report of child abuse, the first officer said. Who made the call? I did. Darius stepped forward. That woman hurt my daughters. There is physical evidence. The burn mark is on my daughter's arm. The officer looked at Monique. Ma'am, we are going to need you to come with us. This is ridiculous, Monique said. But her voice had gone smaller. The authority of the uniform had deflated something in her. I want my lawyer. You can call your lawyer from the station. The officer took her arm. Right now, we need to ask you some questions. I have not done anything wrong, Monique insisted. But she was not fighting anymore. This is all a misunderstanding. Those children are troubled. They have issues from losing their mother. Zuri spoke up. Her voice was small but clear. She said our mommy died because she did not want to be our mother anymore. The officer's face hardened. He had been professional before. Now there was something personal in his eyes. He looked at Monique with the kind of cold disgust reserved for the lowest kinds of people. Ma'am, we are definitely going to need to talk. He started walking her toward the door. And you might want to start thinking about how you want to explain that burn mark. Monique looked back once as they led her out. Her eyes found Darius. There was no love in that look. No regret. No humanity. Just pure, cold hatred. Then the church doors closed behind her and she was gone. Darius turned to his daughters. They stood in the middle of the aisle, still holding hands. Their white dresses were wrinkled now. Their carefully styled hair had come loose. Their faces were tear-stained and exhausted. But they were smiling. Small, trembling smiles. The smiles of children who had finally been heard. Darius crossed the space between them in 3 long strides. He dropped to his knees and pulled them both into his arms. He held them so tight he could feel their hearts beating against his chest. I am so sorry, he whispered into their hair. I am so sorry I did not see it sooner. I am so sorry I let her hurt you. Nyla's small hand patted his back. The gesture was so adult, so maternal, that it nearly broke him. You believed us, Daddy, she said. When it mattered most, you believed us. Behind them, the church slowly began to empty. Guests filed out in stunned silence. Some stopped to touch Darius's shoulder. Others simply nodded and left. The wedding was over. The decorations looked obscene now. The flowers, the candles, the white ribbons. All of it seemed to mock what had almost happened here. Darius's mother approached slowly. Her face was gray with shock but her spine was straight. Come on, babies, she said to the twins. Let us get you home. But before they could move, a woman in a CPS jacket stepped through the church doors. Her badge glinted in the stained glass light. Mr. Cole, she said. I need to speak with you and your daughters. Separately. Darius's arms tightened around the twins. I am not leaving them. I understand, sir. But it is procedure. Her voice was gentle but firm. We need to interview the children without the parent present. It is for their protection as well as yours. Zuri looked up at her father. Her eyes were tired but determined. It is okay, Daddy, she said. We can be brave a little longer. Those words. From his 11-year-old daughter. They nearly destroyed him. He kissed both their foreheads. Held their hands until the very last second. Then he watched them walk away with the CPS officer, looking back only once. What the investigators would discover about Monique Hayes would shock everyone. But the biggest revelation was still to come. What had Monique's plan really been? And how close had Darius come to losing his daughters forever? Ma'am, we are definitely going to need to talk. The officer's grip tightened on Monique's arm. And you might want to start thinking about how you want to explain that burn mark. Monique looked back once as they led her toward the door. Her eyes found Darius. There was no love in that look. No regret. No humanity. Just pure, cold hatred. Then the church doors closed behind her and she was gone. Darius turned to his daughters. They stood in the middle of the aisle, still holding hands. Their white dresses were wrinkled now. Their carefully styled hair had come loose. Their faces were tear-stained and exhausted. But they were smiling. Small, trembling smiles. The smiles of children who had finally been heard. Darius crossed the space between them in 3 long strides. He dropped to his knees and pulled them both into his arms. He held them so tight he could feel their hearts beating against his chest. I am so sorry, he whispered into their hair. I am so sorry I did not see it sooner. I am so sorry I let her hurt you. Nyla's small hand patted his back. The gesture was so adult, so maternal, that it nearly broke him. You believed us, Daddy, she said. When it mattered most, you believed us. Behind them, the church slowly began to empty. Guests filed out in stunned silence. Some stopped to touch Darius's shoulder. Others simply nodded and left. The wedding was over. The decorations looked obscene now. The flowers, the candles, the white ribbons. All of it seemed to mock what had almost happened here. Darius's mother approached slowly. Her face was gray with shock but her spine was straight. Come on, babies, she said to the twins. Let us get you home. But before they could move, a woman in a CPS jacket stepped through the church doors. Her badge glinted in the stained glass light. Mr. Cole, she said. I need to speak with you and your daughters. Separately. Darius's arms tightened around the twins. I am not leaving them. I understand, sir. But it is procedure. Her voice was gentle but firm. We need to interview the children without the parent present. It is for their protection as well as yours. Zuri looked up at her father. Her eyes were tired but determined. "It is okay, Daddy," she said. "We can be brave a little longer." Those words. From his 11-year-old daughter. They nearly destroyed him. He kissed both their foreheads. Held their hands until the very last second. Then he watched them walk away with the CPS officer, looking back only once. What the investigators would discover about Monique Hayes would shock everyone. But the biggest revelation was still to come. What had Monique's plan really been? And how close had Darius come to losing his daughters forever? "Ma'am, we are definitely going to need to talk." The officer's grip tightened on Monique's arm. "And you might want to start thinking about how you want to explain that burn mark." Monique looked back once as they led her toward the door. Her eyes found Darius. There was no love in that look. No regret. No humanity. Just pure, cold hatred. The kind of hatred that promised this was not over. Then the church doors closed behind her and she was gone. Blue and red lights flashed through the stained glass windows. The colors danced across the pews like some twisted disco. More vehicles were pulling up outside. An ambulance. Another squad car. A dark sedan with government plates. Darius stood frozen in the center aisle. His expensive suit was wrinkled now. His tie hung loose. His hands would not stop shaking no matter how hard he tried to steady them. His daughters had not moved from their spot near the altar. They stood together like two small statues, still holding hands, still wearing those white dresses that now seemed like costumes from a nightmare. "Daddy?" Nyla's voice broke something inside him. He crossed the space between them in 3 long strides. His knees hit the floor hard. He pulled both girls into his arms and held them so tight he could feel their hearts beating against his chest. "I am so sorry," he whispered into their hair. "I am so sorry I did not see it sooner. I am so sorry I let her into our home. I am so sorry I let her hurt you." Zuri's small arms wrapped around his neck. "It is okay, Daddy." "No." His voice cracked. "It is not okay. None of this is okay. I was supposed to protect you. That is my one job. And I failed." Nyla pulled back just enough to look at his face. Her eyes were red and swollen, but something new was there. Something that looked almost like peace. "You believed us," she said simply. "When it mattered most, you believed us." Those words hit Darius harder than anything else that had happened today. Because she was right. In the end, when the moment came, he had chosen his daughters over everything else. Over his pride. Over his reputation. Over the woman he thought he loved. But the guilt still crushed him. 18 months. For 18 months, Monique had been hurting his children right under his nose. In his own house. While he slept in the next room. While he went to work thinking everything was fine. While he planned a wedding and picked out flowers and wrote vows about love and family and forever. All that time, his daughters had been suffering in silence. Afraid to speak. Afraid no one would believe them. The church doors opened again. A woman in a navy blue jacket stepped inside. Her badge caught the light. CPS. Child Protective Services. "Mr. Cole?" Her voice was professional but not unkind. "I am Investigator Denise Washington. I need to speak with you and your daughters separately." Darius's arms tightened around the twins. "I am not leaving them." "I understand, sir. But it is standard procedure." She knelt down to meet the girls at eye level. "We need to hear your story without anyone else in the room. Not because we do not trust your daddy. But because we want to make sure we get every detail right. Can you do that for me?" Nyla looked at her father. Then at her sister. Some silent communication passed between them. "Will it help put her in jail?" Nyla asked. The investigator nodded. "It will help us build a case. The more you can tell us, the stronger that case becomes." Zuri squeezed her sister's hand. "Then we can do it." Darius felt his heart shatter and swell at the same time. His 11-year-old daughters were braver than most adults he knew. They had carried this burden alone for 18 months. They had faced their abuser in front of 80 people. And now they were willing to relive it all again just to make sure justice was served. "I will be right outside," Darius said. He kissed both their foreheads. "You are the bravest girls I have ever known. And I am so proud of you." Nyla managed a small smile. "We learned it from you, Daddy." She had no idea how wrong she was. He had not been brave. He had been blind. But he would spend the rest of his life making it up to them. The investigator led the girls to a small room off the main sanctuary. Darius watched them go until the door closed. Then he sank down onto the nearest pew and put his head in his hands. His mother appeared beside him. Her church hat was gone now. Her face looked 20 years older than it had this morning. "How did we miss it?" she whispered. "How did all of us miss it?" Darius had no answer. Because the truth was, they had not missed it. They had seen the signs and chosen to explain them away. Outside, more sirens approached. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Darius knew that what the investigators would discover about Monique Hayes would be far worse than anything he could imagine. The real nightmare was only beginning. 3 hours later, Darius sat in a plastic chair at the police station. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The coffee in his hand had gone cold 2 hours ago. He had not taken a single sip. His mother sat on one side of him. Keisha sat on the other. Malcolm paced near the windows. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. The girls were still being interviewed. Separately. With trained professionals who knew how to ask questions without causing more trauma. Darius had wanted to be in there with them. Had begged, actually. But protocol was protocol. So he waited. And the waiting was its own kind of torture. Every minute felt like an hour. Every time a door opened, his heart stopped. Every footstep in the hallway made him jump. Mr. Cole? Darius looked up. Detective Simmons stood in front of him. The man was in his 50s with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too much. Your daughters are finished, the detective said. They did real good. Real brave. Can I see them? In a minute. First, there is something you need to know. The detective sat down in the chair across from Darius. His face was grim. We ran a background check on Monique Hayes. Darius's stomach dropped. And? That is not her real name. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What do you mean that is not her real name? Monique Hayes does not exist before 4 years ago. No birth certificate. No school records. No employment history. Nothing. The detective leaned forward. We ran her fingerprints. Her real name is Monica Henderson. She has a record. Darius felt the room tilt. A record for what? Child endangerment. 2 prior incidents in 2 different states. Both times she was involved with single fathers. Both times there were allegations of abuse against the children. The detective paused. Both times, the charges were dropped when the fathers refused to cooperate. Keisha made a sound like someone had kicked her. Darius's mother started crying quietly. Malcolm stopped pacing. His hands curled into fists. She has done this before, Darius said slowly. She targeted me. She targeted my girls. That is what it looks like. The detective nodded. Single father. Young children. Stable income. You fit her pattern exactly. She moved to your town specifically to find someone like you. The realization crashed over Darius like a wave. None of it had been real. The chance meeting at the coffee shop. The shy smiles. The long conversations about loss and healing and starting over. The way she had seemed to understand his grief like no one else could. All of it had been calculated. All of it had been a trap. And his daughters had paid the price. We also found something at her apartment, the detective continued. A journal. She kept detailed notes about your family. Your schedule. The girls' school. Your finances. She had a plan, Mr. Cole. A long-term plan. What kind of plan? The detective hesitated. She was waiting until after the wedding. Until she had legal status as their stepmother. Then she was going to push for full custody by claiming you were an unfit parent. She had been documenting incidents. Made-up incidents. Things she was going to use against you in court. Darius could not breathe. She was going to take my daughters? That appears to have been the goal. Along with whatever financial assets she could get in a divorce settlement. The detective stood. The good news is, we got her before any of that could happen. And with the physical evidence and 80 witnesses to her confession, she is not walking away from this. The detective extended his hand. Your daughters saved themselves, Mr. Cole. And they saved you. You should be very proud of them. Darius shook the man's hand on autopilot. His mind was still spinning. Still trying to process the scope of what had almost happened. She had been playing him for 18 months. And if Nyla had not spoken up at that altar, he would have married a predator. His daughters would have been trapped with her legally. And he would have been powerless to stop whatever came next. The door to the interview room opened. Nyla and Zuri walked out holding hands. They looked exhausted. Wrung out. But when they saw their father, they ran. Darius caught them both. Lifted them off the ground. Held them like he would never let go. It is over, he whispered. She cannot hurt you anymore. But even as he said the words, he knew the healing was just beginning. And it would take a long, long time. 6 weeks later, Darius stood at the kitchen sink washing breakfast dishes. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The radio played something soft in the background. From the living room, he could hear the girls arguing about what movie to watch. Normal sounds. Peaceful sounds. Sounds he had almost lost forever. The trial had been 2 weeks ago. Monique, or Monica, or whatever her real name was, had been convicted on multiple counts of child abuse, child endangerment, and fraud. The judge had shown no mercy. 8 years in state prison. No possibility of parole for at least 5. When the verdict was read, she had screamed at Darius from across the courtroom. Called him names. Blamed him for ruining her life. 2 bailiffs had to drag her out. The girls had not been present. They were with their grandmother, eating ice cream and watching cartoons, blissfully unaware of the chaos happening downtown. That was how Darius wanted it. They had been through enough. The doorbell rang. Darius dried his hands and walked to the front door. Through the glass, he could see a delivery truck pulling away. On the porch sat a small package. He picked it up. No return address. Just his name in neat handwriting. Something cold moved through his stomach. He brought the package inside and opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. The girls at their school playground. Taken from a distance. Taken recently. And on the back, written in red ink. This is not over. Darius's blood went ice cold. Monique was in prison. She could not have sent this. Which meant someone else had. An accomplice. Someone she had been working with. Someone still out there. His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone. Detective Simmons answered on the second ring. "We have a problem," Darius said. The detective's voice was sharp. "What kind of problem?" "Someone just sent me a photo of my daughters. At school. With a threat on the back." Silence on the other end. Then, "Do not touch anything else. I am on my way." Darius hung up. His mind was racing. How could he have thought this was over? How could he have let his guard down? He looked toward the living room where his daughters were laughing at something on television. They did not know. They could not know. Not yet. He had failed to protect them once. He would not fail again. Whatever was coming, whoever had sent that photo, they had made a terrible mistake. Because Darius Cole was no longer the blind, trusting man he had been 6 weeks ago. He was a father who had almost lost everything. And he would burn the world down before he let anyone hurt his daughters again. The front door burst open. Detective Simmons stood there, breathing hard, his face grave. "We found something at Monica's apartment that we missed the first time," he said. "Hidden compartment in the closet. She was not working alone, Mr. Cole. She had a partner. A man named Terrence Williams. And he is in the wind." Darius felt the floor drop out from under him. "Where are my daughters right now? Daddy?" He spun around. Nyla stood in the hallway, her face pale. "Someone was watching us at school yesterday," she said quietly. "A man in a gray car. I was going to tell you but I thought I was being paranoid." The room went silent. Then Darius grabbed his keys. "Get in the car. Both of you. Now." The hunt had just begun. But that is a story for another day. What happened next took 3 more weeks to unfold. 3 weeks of police surveillance. 3 weeks of sleepless nights. 3 weeks of Darius driving his daughters to school himself and picking them up the moment the final bell rang. Terrence Williams was caught trying to cross into Canada with fake identification. He had been Monica's partner for 7 years. They had run the same scheme in 4 different states. Target single fathers. Groom the children. Marry into the family. Then slowly dismantle everything from the inside. Some of their victims had lost custody of their children. Some had lost their homes. One man had taken his own life after losing everything. Darius could have been next on that list. The trial for Terrence was swift. His own digital footprint condemned him. Emails. Text messages. Photographs of target families going back years. He got 12 years. No parole. When the verdict came in, Darius did not feel victory. He felt tired. The kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. But the girls were safe. That was what mattered. The monsters were locked away. The nightmare was truly over. On a Saturday morning 2 months after Terrence's conviction, Darius sat at the kitchen table with his daughters. Pancakes steamed on their plates. Orange juice caught the sunlight. Everything looked normal. But nothing would ever be normal again. And maybe that was okay. "Daddy?" Nyla set down her fork. "Can we talk about something?" Darius nodded. "Always. Are you ever going to get married again?" The question caught him off guard. He set down his coffee cup and looked at both his daughters. Really looked. "I do not know," he said honestly. "Maybe someday. A long time from now. But if I do, things will be different." "Different how?" "I will listen better. I will pay attention. And you two will have veto power." He reached across the table and took their hands. "If either of you ever feels uncomfortable with anyone I bring into our lives, you tell me. Immediately. And I will believe you. No questions asked." Zuri smiled. "Promise? Promise. Cross my heart." Nyla squeezed his hand. "We are sorry we did not tell you sooner. We were scared. You have nothing to apologize for." His voice was firm. "Nothing. You were children dealing with an adult problem. You did the best you could. And when it mattered most, you found your voice. You saved yourselves. You saved me. He stood up and walked around the table to hug them both. I am the one who is sorry, he said into their hair. I brought that woman into our home. I missed the signs. I let my loneliness make me blind. And you paid the price for my mistakes. You did not know, Zuri said softly. I should have known. He pulled back to look at them. But I am learning. We are all learning. And from now on, we face everything together. As a family. Deal? Deal, both girls said at once. Darius smiled. The first real smile in months. Now finish your pancakes before they get cold. The girls laughed and picked up their forks. Outside, the sun was shining. Birds were singing. The world kept spinning like it always did. But inside that small kitchen, something had changed. A family had been broken and rebuilt. Stronger than before. Bound by something deeper than blood. Bound by truth. By trust. By the choice to believe. 1 year later, Darius Cole stood in the same church where his life had fallen apart. But today felt different. The pews were filled again. The stained glass windows threw colored light across the floor. Music played softly from the organ. He was not getting married. He was watching his daughters receive an award. The county had created a new recognition for young people who showed exceptional courage in difficult circumstances. Nyla and Zuri were the first recipients. Their story had inspired changes in how child abuse cases were handled in 3 surrounding counties. The girls walked to the front of the church in matching yellow dresses. Their hair was done up in beautiful braids. Their smiles were genuine. Unforced. A year of therapy had done wonders. They still had nightmares sometimes. They still flinched at certain sounds. But they were healing. Slowly. Steadily. And they had each other. The mayor handed them the award. A small plaque with their names engraved in gold. The audience applauded. Camera flashes went off. But the moment that mattered came after. When Nyla stepped up to the microphone. Thank you for this award, she said. Her voice was steady. Strong. But we did not do anything special. We just told the truth. She looked at her father in the front row. For a long time, we were scared to speak. We thought no one would believe us. We thought we would get in trouble. We thought we would lose our daddy. Zuri stepped up beside her sister. But we learned something important, Zuri said. Your voice matters. Even when you are small. Even when you are scared. Even when the person hurting you seems powerful. Your voice is your superpower. Nyla nodded. If there is anyone out there going through something like we went through, please listen. Tell someone. Tell your teacher. Tell your coach. Tell a neighbor. Tell anyone who will listen. And if the first person does not believe you, tell someone else. Keep telling until someone hears you. She paused. Her eyes swept the room. Because you deserve to be safe. You deserve to be believed. And there are people out there who will fight for you. We promise. The audience rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous. Darius wiped tears from his face. His mother was sobbing beside him. Keisha had her arm around both of them. After the ceremony, the girls ran to their father. He scooped them up like he had done 1,000 times before. I am so proud of you, he whispered. Nyla grinned. We know. Later that evening, the 3 of them sat on the back porch watching the sunset. Fireflies blinked in the yard. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and possibility. Daddy? Zuri asked. Do you think Mommy would be proud of us? Darius smiled. Baby girl, your mother would be the proudest woman in the world. She is probably up there right now telling all the angels about her brave daughters. Nyla leaned against his shoulder. I miss her. I know. I miss her too. Every day. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Watching the colors change in the sky. Feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Finally, Darius spoke. You know what I learned this year? What? Both girls asked. That love is not about finding someone to complete you. It is about protecting what you already have. He pulled them closer. You two are my whole world. You always have been. I just forgot that for a while. But I will never forget again. Nyla looked up at him. Promise? Promise. Cross my heart. The sun dipped below the horizon. The first stars appeared. And in that quiet moment, the Cole family was whole again. Not because nothing bad had happened. But because they had faced the worst together and come out the other side. Stronger. Braver. More connected than ever. And that is the true meaning of family. Not the absence of storms. But the willingness to weather them together. If this story moved you, take a moment to think about the children in your life. Are they okay? Are they truly okay? Sometimes the smallest signs hide the biggest cries for help. A change in behavior. A reluctance to be alone with someone. A fear that seems to come from nowhere. Pay attention. Ask questions. And most importantly, believe them when they answer. Because every child deserves a champion. Every child deserves to be heard. And sometimes, the only thing standing between a child and danger is one adult willing to listen. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. We share stories like this every week. Stories of courage. Stories of survival. Stories that remind us what it means to be human. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. Have you ever had to stand up for someone who could not stand up for themselves? Your story might inspire someone else to find their voice. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Because stories like this one do not just entertain. They save lives. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and always believe the children.